Jessi, welcome to College Hit Advice. I am so excited you are here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I like to start with guests who are here to share their journey by asking you what your superpowers are and how you discovered them, because part of the mission at College Hit Advice is to empower each and every person to leverage their unique talents, skills, gifts, experiences, perspectives, and use them to do their work in the world, serve the world, contribute in the world in a way that aligns with their purpose, which I define as you being you. And that when you are you and you are honoring you, you do work that's aligned with who you are. And that's doing work that's on purpose. And so I'd love to know what your superpowers and gifts are and how you figured that out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question to open with. I would say that my superpower, I guess my predominant superpower, because I like to think maybe I have a couple, but I'd say that my first one is really being willing to do whatever it takes to get it done. And I think that this is a mentality that I have both in my professional life and my hobbies, but also in my relationships. When I am in a relationship with someone, whether that's a friend or a romantic partner, whatever that is, I am all in. I'm going to do, I'm going to put 100% of myself into this relationship. And I hope for the same in return. But I think I really discovered this superpower in high school through a relationship that I was in. It was not a good relationship. We were both really struggling with our mental health, and we were really leaning on each other, or I guess he was leaning on me. And I was super proud of the fact that I would do whatever it took to keep him happy and keep him alive, really. And looking back on it, that's probably not the best way to go about in a relationship that's, that codependent and that struggling with your mental health. But it was through that experience that really pulled that superpower out of me, that I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do what it takes to accomplish this task, whatever that task is.
I think that's an amazing superpower. And I want to point out, because I think sometimes we think our superpowers are things like, I'm a good writer, I'm good at math. It's connected to an academic subject or like a really specific skill. And that usually our superpowers are more subtle and transferable than that. So I think yours really showcases the subtleness and also the transferability to different circumstances is something that I think about it as something that you can kind of carry with you in your toolbox as you move from role to role and experience throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It can be so easy to, in the system that we have of grades and of things like that, to get stuck in, oh, well, I have an A in this, so I'm good at this. That's my superpower. When your superpower can absolutely be something that's more of a personal trait that you can use in so many areas of your life.
Yeah, because the thing is that yes, some of us do have natural proclivities to understanding analytical thinking or creative thinking, but the grade, and I released an episode earlier on what it means to make an A and what grades really mean and what grades really measure. A grade is simply the mastery of the content in a particular class at the level that that particular instructor is looking for. It's not a representation of your intelligence. It's not a representation even of your skills or your potential. It was your ability to do what you needed to do in that class and show mastery of that particular coursework. And mastery of that particular coursework will serve you, right? But it's not who you are and part of your identity.
Right. And it's definitely not the sole part of your identity. It is so easy. And I was one of these people too that was like, all right, I have to get all A's. That's who I am. I am the girl that gets all A's. And, that mindset can be really consuming when there's so much more to you. There's your hobbies, there's your relationships, there's your character. There's so many different pieces of you besides just academics.
And when you don't get the A, those pieces of you still exist and are what's really important. But if you're putting so many things in the basket of the A, when you don't get the A, it hurts a lot because it feels like part of your identity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It can be difficult to tie your identity and your character to things that are determined by external forces. Like, you unfortunately don't write your own grades. Someone else makes the grades for you. And also to something that is changeable and physical and outside of yourself. So having your identity be, I am a daughter, I am a sister, I love deeply, I get it done no matter what it takes. Having those things, no one can take those away from you. And those are, in my opinion, more important than what your report card or your resume says.
Amen. I'm right there with you on that. Well, how are you now using these superpowers to contribute to the world? So I just, as a piece of framing here, I like to say to contribute or serve the world, because I think along the same lines of this conversation around identity, sometimes we make the mistake of pushing together and conflating what we do with who we are. And I really believe we aren't what we do. We are who we are, and we use who we are to do things, to serve, create, work. And that what we do for work can completely be in alignment with who we are. But in many, many cases, we don't always have the freedom to do work that's in alignment with who we are, right? Even though we all are capable and have in us something to give. And so I like to ask, how are you contributing to the world using who you are, rather than what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear what you're saying. So I'm going to answer this backwards and then we'll get to the actual answer in just a second. But
Yeah.
through my work, I am writing a book, and it's about trauma healing, and I do a lot of speaking in the mental health space and things like that. So by sharing my story and by sharing what I've learned through expert interviews and research and things like that, I am contributing to the world in that way. I'm helping people feel more like they're valid, like they're heard, like they're appreciated in their mental health struggles, and find a path forward that feels best for them. So through that, I am contributing to the world. But in those endeavors, there's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be things that come up. There's going to be criticisms. There's going to be all of these things that can get in your way and prevent you from acting out that message and that purpose that you have. And so my superpower of being like, it's going to get done. We're going to get through this no matter what it takes. That has really helped me in so many different areas, because when a roadblock like that does occur, I can say, okay, well, we're going to figure it out, because that's who I am. I figure it out. And that's really how that's been serving me in so many different areas of my life.
Yeah, that resourcefulness, especially if you're going to go out, and I think in any work, but especially work that is you getting out there and sharing your message online as an influencer, as a speaker in an auditorium, as an author, as a podcaster, as a YouTuber. And I know a lot of you listening are interested in like, how do I get into that world? I think 99% of it is being resourceful and scrappy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so, when I started speaking on college campuses, I was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to like 10 campuses and I'm going to get 5 gigs and it's going to be great. And it's like, nope, you need to reach out to like a couple thousand, and then maybe you'll get, it's so much harder. It's so much more difficult, still rewarding, still absolutely worth it. I'm not trying to tell anyone not to do it, but it takes so much more than I thought. And so having that resourcefulness and just being like, I am not giving up no matter what it takes, that is really, really helpful in a field like this.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's not about like I think sometimes we can default to like, something's wrong with me. They don't like me. My pitch wasn't good, right? All those places. I'm guilty of this too. I'm not making fun of people that go here. That I am totally guilty of this too. But I think the reality is that people have really full inboxes. There are a lot of people pitching to them, and they have so many resources, time, mental space, money, all those things. And so I think you've got to put a lot of effort out there to get back the percentage that you need. It's not a reflection of you, your ability, your capabilities. There are a lot of external factors to you that go into getting the specific outcome that you want. I think what's important is being open to possibilities. And if you're doing the work, things may be really close to the exact outcome you want, but you open yourself up to allowing outcomes you couldn't even imagine or predict.
Absolutely. When you get stuck in this mindset of, this is exactly what I want, this is the only way that I'm going to achieve it, and you just get in this really narrow rut, it's like you're shutting yourself off from so many other opportunities, like you said. So approaching it with, this is my goal, this is a method that I'm going to use to get there, but I'm also open to whatever God, the universe, whatever you want to call that spiritual force, whatever that is, whatever it throws at me, I'm going to be open to that too. And you are going to get opportunities that are so crazy and so different than what you thought you'd be doing. I never thought I'd write a book at this point in my life. I thought that was okay, let's let the manuscript sit for a couple years and then maybe we'll work with a publisher and get it out there. And then it was like, I was getting all these resources from, hey, maybe you should self-publish. Have you looked at this? What about this? And I was like, oh my gosh, right? So just keeping that open, you're going to get so many more opportunities than just that one way that you've been actively pursuing.
Yeah, podcasting didn't exist when I was in college, you guys. I could have never been like, I'm going to be a podcaster. Like, I had to get the experience and the expertise. And when this became a a mode of expressing that, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do that. And I pivoted, right? So it's about the skills, and you've heard us say this before. This is like one of my soapboxes, but it's about collecting the skills and being open to possibilities, because if you try to constrict and control it, like you said, you miss opportunities, right? If you're like, no, I'm going to wait until I'm more experienced to write that book, maybe you miss your
Oh,
opportunity to
yeah.
write it, right? Or you have that conversation that we have, like, oh, who wants to hear from me? Who's going to buy a book? Who's right? These internal conversations, you just have to kind of do it and then see how it lands and be okay with how it lands. And then, you'll know
Hmm.
it takes a little bit of bravery, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what you said earlier is so true about how your failure isn't a reflection on you as a person and how it can be so easy to get stuck there. But I always look at failures as very, very, very objective, keyword, learning opportunities. So, yeah, maybe there was something wrong with your pitch. Maybe your subject line wasn't good. Maybe this happened, maybe that happened. And if you
Mhm.
can look at those things and analyze those and say, okay, what went wrong, without getting in this mind trap of, I'm a horrible person, I'm a failure, I'm destined to never succeed, things like that, that's when you start to make strides. Everyone is going to fail. You are going to mess up. I'm sorry if I'm bursting that bubble for you for the first time, but you will mess up. And if that knocks you down to the point where you cannot look at it and say, okay, let me tweak this and try again, then that's where real failure is, in my opinion, not in that lesson that you just learned.
Yeah, I so agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about how you got here, because I have a lot of students who are looking for the linear path. I'm going to get
Mm.
into this prestigious college and I'm going to major in this thing. And that major is going to lead me to this specific job. And then that's going to lead me to success, happiness, and rainbows and sunshine and puppies. And in my experience, you guys, it doesn't quite work that way. That the education that you're getting is a lot more loose than that. And that like I was saying, you're sort of collecting tools of skills, experiences, relationships that you're putting into this toolbox that you're going to take with you from opportunity, role to role, experience to experience as you move through your life, because how you use your purpose is going to change and evolve as you sort of move through your life. So how has that looked for you? How did you get into this current line of work? What education, skills, and experiences, key relationships informed that, opened doors for you? What did you major in? All those kinds of things.
Yeah, the full story.
The full
So,
story.
just to set the scene a little bit for you guys, I was that kid in high school that wanted the perfect path. I was salutatorian of my high school. I can tell you exactly what class, what semester I would have needed to get one more point corrected in order to be valedictorian. My parents, my mom has a master's from Yale. My dad has 2 bachelor's degrees in aerospace engineering and computer science. So needless to say, I grew up in a very academic focused, this is the path sort of family. And I love my parents. My parents are very smart. They supported me, no, this is not against my parents here, but that's what I thought. So my freshman year of college, I spent at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, their veterinary school, right? So I was 18 years old, I was in vet school, and it was such a prestigious institution. I was so proud of myself, and it was not a good fit. I got there, and within a couple months, I just felt like the world was crushing in on me. It was not fulfilling. It was not what I wanted to do. I was having some major ethical questions and conundrums with how the veterinary world is run. I was like, this is not for me. I need to get out of here. And what was really informing that decision for me is my belief that I could walk out the door tomorrow morning and get hit by a bus, and I would not be happy with how I'd lived my life so far. I would not be proud of the impact I had made and the legacy that I had left. And I was like, that needs to change. So I left vet school after 1 year, which was a huge conundrum. That was something that I really struggled with. Am I quitting? Am I a failure? Versus am I just being self-aware and saying, okay, this isn't for me. Let's pivot a little bit. And luckily, I was able to decide that the latter was true. I was just pivoting. I wasn't a quitter. I wasn't a failure. It wasn't like I couldn't hack it. And really started to look at, okay, what do I actually want? So I came back to this definition of fulfillment for me, which was being out there right now, doing actionable things and saving people's lives. That's what fulfillment means to me. And it can mean something different to you, but that's my definition. So I was like, okay, what can I do? So I decided I was going to be a paramedic. So after my first year of vet school, I went and got my EMT license in Canada and was going to start working in that. And my parents were like, no, you need to finish your bachelor's. I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to paramedic school afterwards. Then I went to the University of Minnesota to finish my bachelor's. And within a month or two of being there, I felt that same thing as vet school. I was sitting in classrooms. I was banging my head off the wall. I was not fulfilled. I was not happy. I was not engaged. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So I decided that I was going to go into the military because I found this career that's called pararescue. If you're not familiar with that, it's a member of the special operations community that's a mixture of a trauma paramedic and a search and rescue specialist. And I was like, this is it, right? This was so aligned. It felt right on so many levels. This is what I was going to do. I was going to be out there saving people that were about to die every single day and getting to travel and be part of a team and all of these fantastic things. And I was like, yes. So when it came time to submit the medical background paperwork for entrance into the military, I determined that I was ineligible for military service because of my history with mental health struggles. So that brought up another kind of personal crisis of, do I lie about my medical history? Do I lie about that part of my life and attain my dream? Or do I stick to my values and say goodbye to my dream? And that is something that I still struggle with. 95% of the time it's like, yes, I made the right choice. And the other 5% still, it's like, what are you doing? But I said goodbye to that career, finished off my bachelor's in psychology from the University of Minnesota. And throughout my college experience, I had been kind of dabbling in entrepreneurship. And then once I got to the U of M and I realized I wasn't getting into the military, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Through my mental health work, I'm still saving lives. It looks a little bit different, but I'm still having that definition of fulfillment and moving through that. I also decided to join my local search and rescue team. So my dog and I are actually a canine search and rescue team, which is awesome. And that pulls in that team and that kind of badassery a little bit and those aspects of it. So my path was not linear, but if you guys pull one thing out of that, what I want you to really understand is that I had so many people telling me, you don't know what you want to do with your life. You have no idea. You're just, throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. And that hurt. That felt very personally offensive. But the truth was, when I was able to objectively examine that, I wasn't doing that. Throughout all of my twists and turns, I was sticking true to my definition of what fulfillment looked like. That was my guiding path. And my execution of that definition was changing because of various roadblocks and things that weren't fitting right. And that's okay. Even if you don't know what you're doing, that's okay too. But if you are switching and pivoting and just getting closer and closer to that alignment of what fulfillment means in your own life, how you define success, how you define happiness, there is no shame in that. Sometimes you got to try something before you can realize it's not for you. And if you're still pivoting and sticking true to yourself, who cares what other people think? So if you get one thing out of everything I just said about my journey, that's what I want you to pull out of it, is stick to your definitions. And it is not necessarily going to be this crazy goose chase.
Yes. That's what I would, yes. You're speaking my love language.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, because I think even if you were throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticked, I would still say that was okay. But it sounds like to me what you were doing is you were being on purpose. And it comes back to this idea that purpose is not what you do, it's who you are. And what you do needs to be in an alignment with who you are. And when it's in alignment with who you are, then you're on purpose, and that's going to look different. I think that a lot of times when we don't know what we want to do, it's because we don't have enough information, and that action and experimentation allows you to know if it's for you or not. And that gives you contrast. And once you have that contrast, it's really clarifying, and you can get to an answer way more quickly by getting out there and trying things and experimenting than you can sitting doing nothing and trying to think your way to an answer. But it's more visible and it makes people more nervous. And so you will experience a little bit more of the, what, for lack of a better, I'm going to use the old fashioned term here, the peanut gallery of people saying, hey, what are you doing? That makes me nervous. That, are you sure? That doesn't sound realistic, but you were doing this thing last week. And then you start to feel more and more and more and more flaky. And I had to say, one of my homing beacons is when people start to naysay me, I'm like, oh, I'm on the right path. I'm like, keep going.
I love it. I love that so much. It's so true in so many fields too. I mean, I've had people at every step of my entrepreneurship be like, you need a job. My parents, who are divorced and cannot stand to be in the room with each other, we're going to get together and have an intervention for me because they're like, you don't know what you're doing. You need a real job. And I was like, I have a real job. Thank you very much. But I totally
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah, this podcast, if I had listened to people, this podcast wouldn't exist. When I first had this idea, why do you want to have a podcast? Don't you want to go on YouTube? What? People don't listen to podcasts. People, who are you going to help? People aren't going to spend money on getting help with college, right? Like I heard everything. You need to I had a really good job. I had like gotten the job I wanted. I landed where I was, and I looked to my left and I looked to my right, and I was like, this is not fulfilling to me. And this is not, I'm not making the impact I thought. And I'm only in my early 30s. I can't do this for another 30 years. I had to think of something. I had to do something else. I was not on purpose. I was not in alignment. When you start to feel that emotional feeling that you described, that like, oh, it just doesn't feel right. I just feel like the weight of the world's on me, counting down the clock. I feel really tense and stressed. I feel really low energy. You are not on purpose. Not to say that you're not going to have challenges and things that scare you and difficulties when you are on purpose. You are, but this feels different. That feeling of like, this is just not where I need to go. And also, you might do something for a little while, and then you may pivot to something else. No one that I know who's lived a really full, rich life. And, my mentor is 80. She lives down the street from me. And there's not a person that I know who hasn't lived a really rich, full life, and especially her, who hasn't done a ton of stuff. Sometimes at the same time. Sometimes every 3 years, because they get bored and they pivot, or because an opportunity comes available because of the skill they developed, right? So the thing is that idea that we get a professional job and we stick with it for 40 years, in human history, that idea is like a 2-generation long experience from the 20th century. And our parents were reared, they're one of those, depending on who your parents are, may have been reared by or were part of that generation. And so they perceive that to be how it is. And the reality is if they look just 2 generations before them, if they look at their grandparents, they would see that that's not how they lived life. Or if they looked at their great-grandparents or their great-great-grandparents, they would see that's not how they lived life. That's like a 2 or 3 generation long 20th century economic reality. We're in a different century. We're in a different economy. We're in a different world. And things have changed, and they will always change. My background's in U.S. history and economic U.S. history. And so no time in, the history of the U.S. has the economy shifted like 5 times. And the way people's lives and work looked changed alongside that. And there's always a lot of disruption and a lot of resistance to that change. And we're in one of those moments right now. And so I think, there's an episode we aired earlier a few months ago called How to Be Future-Proof. And one of the things that she recommends is being able to define your own success and to be able to pivot and carry that with you. And I think you're saying something very similar, that you have to define your own success and your own fulfillment. And you have to be connected with yourself enough to be like, I'm out of alignment. And when you hear that and feel that, no matter what those around you are saying, you have to be like, I hear you, and I know you love me, and I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I have to do this. And you have to do what you have to do because you're living this life. And when you're old person later on, you're the one who's going to reflect back and be like, did I do what I wanted to do or not? Right?
Absolutely. And one thing that I use a lot in my own life that I think is really powerful is when you get those people in your lives that are saying, don't do this, you need to do this instead, this is too risky, whatever that is. As hard as it may seem to understand this, they are usually coming from a place of wanting to see you happy, wanting to see you safe, and loving you. And so a tip that I've used in my own life is explaining to this person that, okay, I get that you want to help me. I hear you, but the way in which you're trying to help me by pushing me towards this other thing is not being helpful to me. That is not how I need help right now. How I need help right now is by X, Y, and Z. And you can give them a task to say, hey, I love that you want to help me. I love that you want to be involved in my life. Here's how I need help, as opposed to how you want to give me help. Because when you're in alignment with that, with this other person, when they're giving you help, how you need help at this time, you're going to be happier. They're going to feel like they're more involved. They're going to get off your back because they feel like they're more involved, and everyone's happy. So that's just a little tip that I've used a lot. It's been really helpful for me.
That's such a good strategy. I think you could even apply that to your own fear, because we also have that same fear voice that is like, don't do it. It's scary. Don't take a risk. And sometimes you have to say, like, fear, I see you. I hear you. I love you. Thank you for keeping me safe. I'm not in danger. I need to take this risk and move forward.
Yes, absolutely.
And take the action. If it's not like in bodily harm, if it's that kind of risk that's just like, I'm putting myself out there, I want to try something, like those kinds of risks are okay. Those are healthy risks, and they're okay. So we have covered so much ground. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about your book. So tell us about your book and also where we can find it.
Yes, absolutely. So first things first, most importantly, where you can find it is it'll be available on all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. As far as what it's about, it talks about 9 natural and integrative trauma healing therapies. And basically what those things are things like ecotherapy, equine assisted therapy, craniosacral therapy. So things that aren't talk therapy. And where this book came from was when I was struggling with my mental health. I went to one day of talk therapy and literally ran out of the building because I was so uncomfortable, and I never went back. And that's one of my biggest regrets in my healing journey, is that I didn't have the support of someone who was trained in that field, who had been there, all of these things that come with professional help. And so I was like, okay, I need to look into this more, because there are so many people, especially in the military and first responder fields like I'm a part of, that will not go to talk therapy because of the stigma. Like, it's just not happening. And those are the fields that need it the most. And so I started looking into these natural therapy methods that are sometimes more comfortable and oftentimes more effective for trauma healing, because they have a somatic component. So there's movement, they're outside, it's mind body. And this book started to come together. Now, relating this to college, I was actually going to write this as my capstone project for my undergraduate degree. And when I proposed it to my department, they were like, no. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, it has to be a lit review. It has to be a 13-page lit review. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I spent the whole semester writing this 230-page book. And then the last 3 hours before the lit review is done, it was due, I wrote the lit review and turned that into. So lesson in there is, if you are feeling like you're shoved in a box, break out of the box, do the box anyway, but do what makes you happy first. That all being said. So yeah, I wrote it as kind of a guide of what I wish I knew when I was struggling with my mental health. It is chock full of information about the different therapies, about trauma, about all of these things. So you can take all of the psychobabble that you hear from your therapist and from online and turn it into something that you can really understand and use to make decisions that are going to be good for you. So it's not my job to tell you what therapy is best for you. I'm not qualified to do that. I don't want to do that. That is a choice that you get to make. But I want to provide you with all of the information you need so that you can make the best decision about your path forward to healing. So that's what How to Heal does. That's what it is. So go check it out.
I'm so excited for you. That sounds great. I will also, of course, link to it so people can connect. And I'll also link to your website and Instagram. So if you're interested in connecting with Jessi, go there. Okay.
Yes.
Any last wisdom before we sign off?
There is one thing I wanted to touch on that you said. You went through a large part of your life, and then you were in your early 30s and you're like, this isn't what I want to do. You were feeling unfulfilled. And the point that I wanted to make about that is that you were in your early 30s. It can be so easy for college students to be like, I need to have it figured out right now. Like, I need to know everything that's going on with my life right now, and I have to make one path forward for the rest of my life. And Katie here is a perfect example. She's happy and successful. She looks like she's doing all right. And she pivoted 10 years after college. So don't feel this pressure that you have to have it figured all out right now. Choose something that's in alignment with you now. Work towards that. If you get there and you're like, this isn't for me, then it's okay to pivot, even if you are 5, 10 or more years into your career. So I just wanted to point that out, because you made that point really well and didn't even mean to make that point. So.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. I'm on kind of currently I get on these like little places where I like to push back on the social media echo chamber, where I'm like, why are we all repeating this? This doesn't make any kind of sense. We're all just saying this because everybody else is saying this. And I recently saw an article about someone being like, why do we celebrate 30 under 30 and 20 under 20? And why don't we celebrate people? I want to see people who are like 50 and just figured it out. And I was
Right.
like, yeah, that's exactly right. Because the thing is this is a funny cultural thing that we perpetuate, that like you have to have it all figured out in your 20s. And I gotta be honest with you, you don't have a lot figured out in your 20s. Like you just don't, your brain development isn't fully formed, your life experience is limited, even if you've experienced a lot of life. And I had actually experienced a lot of life.
Mhm.
By the time I was 25, I had major medical crisis. I'd gotten married and divorced, y'all. Like I changed my major. I traveled a lot. Like I did a lot by the time I was 25. I was still wildly immature and uncertain of who I was even then, even with all that life experience, because I think you are always becoming you. And if you kind of let that happen as you age, you naturally become more and more confident about who you are if you let that happen. A lot of people don't let it happen. And
Mhm.
so you are always changing and evolving. And it's not like you become an old lady, old man, old person when you are 40 and you had to have to all figure it out, or that once you get kids, your life is over and you can't do anything. I have two little kids and
Mhm.
I quit my really nice job as a university administrator, supervising a team of 8 people, to start a podcast, you guys. And it's scary. And but I am so glad that I did it because, I had to do things like I had to work part-time get part-time work, and I had to save money, and I had to cut out bills, and I had to make sacrifices because I know in the long run, it's in alignment with my life and it's going to work out. I just have to have that faith that it's going to work out, and it is working out. And the thing is, that's going to happen. That could happen to me again in another 10 years. I could be like, all right, I've podcasted all I podcasted. Now what? Right. And I could go do something completely different and take the skill set with me. Every skill that I've acquired from the time that I was a teenager in high school to now informs what I do. I use them all the time. I am a
Mhm.
history professor. I have a master's degree in history. I used history in this conversation because I can't help myself, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, yes, I'm glad you're pointing that out because I think that is so important. And I think it really comes down to having self-compassion and knowing that your value is not like expiring as you get older, and that you have more time and space than you think to do these things, and that they're
Mhm.
going to happen in their own timing. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point you made about you are constantly becoming you. And that is so true. But the one thing I will say is that with the rise of the digital era and with how much information is online, you have the opportunity at 16, 17, 18, 19 years old to do a lot of personal development work that older generations didn't have. So if you
Yeah.
want to learn about yourself and develop yourself in your 20s, in your college experience, you can absolutely do that. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you also don't
Mhm.
have to wait until you're older. You can do all of this self-actualization work right along the way. So there's no timeline, young or old, on any of this.
Yeah, not at all. And I think too, the need, if we're thinking in that way, that I think you have the access to it because the need for it is great. Right.
Absolutely.
Jessi, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an
Yes.
amazing conversation. I'm really grateful that we connected.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.